Live and direct, you are tuned into the Bro Diallo Show, broadcasting straight out of the sanctuary hypocrisy that is the city of Chirac, state of Illinois, city under siege, city on the edge. Today is October 5th in the year of your Lord, 2018. This is the Bro Diallo Show, broadcasting out of the studios of Q4 Radio. You can find Q4 Radio on HM 1680. Q4.org, listen live, call in live, engage us live. Also, the TuneIn apps and iTunes Radio. Water. All right, cut. I had a little trouble setting up this morning, but that was to everyone's benefit because I shared a little bit of Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, actually his last public speech in Harlem. I forgot what the school it was. But actually, I had in that speech, he talks about enough Negro stuff or no more Negro stuff. And that's in that same presentation is where Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and maybe I'll play it in its totality when I get a chance. I really wanted to share that, so I put that out a little bit, and maybe I'll play the rest of it as we advance in the show. Uh-oh. Something ain't right. What do you want from me? If you can hear me, let me know via the various, because it's definitely not something, still didn't resolve the issue here. But if you have trouble hearing me on the Q4 website, please go to AM 1680 if you're in the city of Chicago, iTunes, TuneIn app, but just let me know if you're having any issues on your end. On my side, I'm doing well, and I hope you are too, and I hope this show is broadcasting as need be. If not, holla at me and I'll let you know. Oh, that's a little better. It's a little coming through a little bit more pronounced, but I guess I got to speak a little louder to get my levels up. Anyway, Khalid Muhammad talked about enough Negro stuff, and he talked about the new Negro, and something that I've been unable to shake. I first heard this presentation maybe in 2001, 2002. I'm not sure when he gave it, but he said we've got a new Negro that we can't contend with. There's a new Negro in the midst of the black community that we're having a lot of trouble positioning. In the past, it was very obvious to the Africans which one of our members of our community had been compromised. During the era of chattel slavery, it was very obvious which members of our community have been broken. That's the thing where they talk about nowadays, broke niggas. You broke. You tell a black man who has no money, who has no property, who has no status, who has no position of authority. You say a black man who is not properly integrated into the system, a black man who, as Cosby would say, didn't keep up his end of the bargain. We had a bargain with white people. White people would give us full and open access to their system, full and open opportunities, and on our end, we'd be good citizens. We pull our pants up, we speak standard English, and we'd act like we had some damn sense. And Bill Cosby said the white man kept up his end of the bargain, but we didn't keep up our end of the bargain. So a black man who didn't keep up his end of the bargain, according to Bill Cosby, a black man who lives in his mama's basement or sleeps on his mama's couch, a black man who has not ascended economically in this system, we call that black man broke. We say you broke. You broke down. You're a scrub. I don't want no scrub. Scrub is a guy who can't get no love from me, sitting on the passenger side of his best friend's ride, trying to holler at me. We call that man broke in 2018, in 1998, and 1908. But there was a different connotation to broke in relationship in the context of black men and women in America. The broke black man during chattel slavery was the black man who had submitted to the system. The black man had bowed down. There would be entire profession. If you were a white man in the 16, 15, early 18, mid 1800s, you could get a job. You could start a career. You could get formal training as a breaker, a slave breaker. So when you had a rebellious slave, when you had a slave that refused to conform to the system, when you had a slave that maybe he wasn't rebellious, maybe he didn't even resist, he just didn't work up to quota, you send him to be broken. You send him to a place where he will be trained, coerced, tortured, mutilated into submitting to the system. And the slaves that made no trouble for the master, the slave that had no resentment for his condition, the slave who didn't stand up, the slave who fully bowed down was called a broken slave, was a broken African. Broken in, broke down, broken. Just like their horse, they called us chattel. Chattel was livestock. A cow, a horse, and a black man and a black woman. And if you read the wonderful book, 400 Years Without a Comb, I had that book for about maybe 4 or 5 years. I had purchased it and I never read it. I thought it was an interesting book, but when I bought Without a Comb, 400 Years Without a Comb, I thought it was a book about black hair. And I had actually bought the book with the intention of gifting it to my sister. I hope she's not listening, because she does hair. She do hair. If you in Kansas City, you need your hair hooked up. She got natural hair. You need you need whatever you need with your hair. Holler at Tanisha the Braider. Because my older sister will hook you up. She will throw down on your scalp. Every time you hit the parking lot, they'll turn heads. Let me do a little. I don't even know if my sister's a little bit old school. She a little bit around the way fillet. So she, I don't even know if she has a website. I know she got little business cards. But anyway, y'all know Tanisha the Braider. Just ask around the neighborhood. Anywhere. If you in Kansas City in the black neighborhood, in the black community, you can ask, babe, Tanisha. Oh, somebody know her. Everybody know. Everybody. But anyway, I was going to give the book to her. I was in New York. I'm like, next time I go to Kansas City, I'm going to give my sister, who's a beautician, a trained formal beautician. She used to train other beauticians. She do her. She braid her. And she trying to transition from the unnatural hair to doing almost, I think, exclusively natural hairstyles and braids. But anyway, beyond all that, I didn't read the book. And I don't know why I didn't end up giving it to my sister. But then I read it, and I found that 400 Years Without a Comb was much more than just hair. But in that book, he talks about how white enslavers would put more interest, more care into the upkeep of their horses and the upkeep of their cattle than they would for the upkeep of their African they held in slavery. They would purchase more products for the beautification and care of and Africans would have to maintain the well-being of animals while their own human well-being was not tended to. So the book transcends hair or the comb. It's more of a book about culture, cultural devolution, cultural oppression, and cultural revival. 400 Years Without a Comb. But after I read that book, I'm like, I'm keeping this. If I get another copy, I'll give it to him. There's also a pretty good documentary there on it too. But moving on. Well, not moving on, but continuing down this same line. There was broken. During the era of chattel slavery, the submissive African was called broke. And the more broke you were, the more broken in, the more broke, the brokest got the most reward. The brokest slave was not the slave who had the least. The brokest slave was not the slave who had the worst job. The brokest slave was not the slave who didn't speak properly, who wore the tattered rags. The brokest slave wore the best clothes, had the most authority, was able to navigate the plantation with relative ease. He would even be brought into his master's house. When the master was away, the master would sometimes hand the whip over to the broke slave and say, you run things. I trust you. You're broke. So you get the most. You get the best. I'll give you my cast-off soup. You can eat high on the hog. You don't have to eat them hog maws, pig skin, chilling pig tail. Here, you get a piece of actually prime cut of pork for you because you're broke. But as time evolved, that concept of broke evolved with it. And so the rebellious nigga, the nigga who didn't know how to act, the nigga who didn't follow the rules, the nigga that was too uppity became the broke nigga. And the broke nigga, the nigga who submitted, the black man, the good Negro who submitted, the good Negro who followed the rules, the good Negro who committed to the system, the good Negro who gave his services, talents, and time to the whites, was no longer broken. And so now we got submissive blacks who said, I do my job. I goes to school. I obeys the law. I don't have no resentments, no hang-ups, and none of that crazy black ideology. Are calling us broke. Now you could call us poor. You could call us uncouth even. There's a lot of insulting things, but when you really understand what it means to be broken under oppression, what it really means to be broke, you'd have to go to corporate boardrooms to find the real broke black men, not to the couches of disappointed mothers with their wayward sons strong. I mean, there's some insults you can level against those men, but I'd like to reinvigorate. I'd like to resurrect the very concept of what it means to be broke. But also that's a rabbit hole that I have emerged out of. My point was Dr. Khalid talked about the new Negro. And he said in the past, we knew how to divvy up the black man. Back then, the broke black people, the broke Africans, were in the house. They wore the master's cast-off clothing. They sometimes carried the whip, or they sometimes walked along the headman or the slave driver. And they would carry the slave driver's rifle in one hand, they carry the slave driver's whip in the other hand, and they carry the slave driver's bucket of water on their elbow. And the slave driver would walk on the fields to oversee the Africans, and he'd walk right next to them. And sometimes there'd be some things that the slave driver, the white master, would miss. And the head slave would say, boss, you see that over there? You see what they're going, them shenanigans over there? Oh, I didn't see it. Thanks for pointing that out, Jabbo. Give me the whip. So he'd do stuff he didn't even have. That wasn't even part of his job description. You were supposed to hold the rifle, hold the whip, and hold the water. You weren't supposed to be you're doing the overseer's job for the overseer. And every African on the plantation, even the freedmen in the north, even the manumission, the meritorious manumission freedmen in the south, understood this guy is against us. He looked like us. They call him, and there's an old joke. I don't know how old it is. But when the lumberjack came into the woods, and the trees would look at the lumberjack and look at his axe, and they say, hey, the handle is made of wood. The axe handle is one of us. And they molded this axe handle, something that was once a part of the tree, into something that can destroy the trees. And so you had these old axe handle niggas. They from the same source as us. They look like us. They made from the same substance as we are. But because they've been fashioned and molded into an instrument of our oppression. So you were axe handle. But every African was very clear. Every African was very clear who was and who wasn't. There was no discussion. You knew who even our most beloved Africans, from Harriet Tubman to Nat Turner. Nat Turner said specifically, don't tell, now we're going to plan this here rebellion, don't you dare tell one house slave what we getting up to today. The house slaves, talk about not invited to the cookout. Every now and then, the Africans would sneak off and have bonfires or little secret meetings around the slave shack. And they never would invite that, the cookout, the bonfire, the gathering. They didn't invite them. It wasn't no argument. Nat Turner, Harriet Tubman, when she would go to the slave shack, she wouldn't go knock on the plantation window and try to get one of them house slaves to come with us. We didn't want them, even if they came. If they were willing to run, we didn't want them to run. We was like, you stay in the lap of luxury. You stay with your master. We know you have more interest in preserving this system than the rest of us. We were very clear on that. After Emancipation Proclamation, we had a little window of time, the Reconstruction era. We had a little window of time where we was getting it, we was making it. We thought, okay, the white man has recognized the error of his ways, and he's going to do like Bill Cosby said he did, keep up his end of the bargain, give us our constitutional right, recognize our humanity, and get the hell out of our way and let us shine. Let us get ours. Let us be full and citizens and participants in this democratic republic on this stolen land. Didn't last. The white man couldn't keep it up because he saw us. We was shining. We was getting it. We was benefiting white folks, but wasn't enough. And when white folks was during Reconstruction, white folks got too uppity. We pull out our pistols. Y'all pull out y'all pistols. Throw down the tomahawk, and we can throw down. What you want to do? And that's why the white man in the South ran to the North and was like, I need some legislation. I need some code. I need some legal political cover. And I need militias and militaries. Because when I'm supposed to be, standing here as a wretched racist and standing across from some slave who's more skilled than I am, been working more than me, because I just spent the last 200 years sitting on the porch sipping mint julep while he did all the work. He's more skilled than me. They have more unity than me. They have more humanity than me. They got more intelligence than me. I need to break this down. Come on with Jim Crow. And so then Jim Crow, we organized around them same lines. The bad blacks and the good blacks. The blacks who were like, oh, it is what it is. I'm just going to toil along and sing this song. And then you had the Africans that were like, man, to hell, this is some bull. And then we all were very recognizing. Because blacks, literally, there was a book written on how to be, this guy named William Hannibal Thomas. There's a book written, a biography called Black Judas. And he was a Civil War veteran, and he was a hero amongst black people, and he had one arm. His other arm was blown off. It was blown off by a cannon fire. And everybody was like, William Hannibal Thomas is a black hero. He was one of the first, and there's only one reason. There's only one reason we don't have him up to Dr. King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. Because he was a hero. He fought and he killed Confederates. He fought like hell. He was born a slave, but he fought along, and he was one of those. You ever see that movie with Denzel Glory? He was one of them black men charging the hill while the white soldiers sat back. We fought for our freedom. Black people may want to believe we were given our freedom. We fought for our freedom. Even Lincoln and the other white men were like, hey, let's enslave them. It's like, if you give the black man the gun, then we won't be able to re-enslave them. We won't be able to re-enslave them if you give the black man the gun. But then they had a choice to make. Because if we don't give the black man the gun, we're going to lose. The North would have lost the war if they hadn't get armed black men. The North would have lost the war. But that's a whole nother discussion, more buried history. But William Hannibal Thomas wrote a book called The American Negro. And he was a progenitor to Cosby. He said the same thing Cosby said. This is a good nation. Black people, get yourself together. Kind of like, it was a less refined Booker T. Washington. Cast down your bail where you stand. Just accept your lot in life and be the best. If you're a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper you can be. So he's like, if we're second-class citizens, it's our own fault. It's called The American Negro. It's one of the most amazing books. But back then, in the late 1800s, early Jim Crow era, the black Uncle Toms were not in any way, they had no incentive to hide their contempt they had for their own people, axe handles. And they would say, oh, I can't stand, I don't want to be around blacks. I don't want to deal with black folk. They would call us monkeys, gorillas, baboons. And then the white man would come and say, you're one of the good ones, and pat him on the head. He was broke. He was broken in. And even to the extent where a black man, a celebrated Civil War veteran, he only had one arm, and he took that one good arm to write one of the most horrible books ever written about blacks by a black man, called The American Negro. And he became known as the Black Judas. But back then, all the way up into the 60s, black people knew this brother's down. This brother is against us. And the line was very clear. But white people would take people like William Hannibal Thomas, like William H. Cosby, and take these black people that they liked and say, this is your leader. Go back and look at the NAACP. And the NAACP was set up by, white people, Jews. And they would pass out the Spingard Award. And Spingard was a white man. The highest honor you can receive from the NAACP is named after a Jewish man. And these white people were very open about, hey, we're going to pick your leaders. We're going to, Booker T. Washington was handpicked and funded by white benevolent. It was a rocket. He always taught y'all conspiracy cats, Masonic conspiracy cats, Rockefeller, Bilderberg, DuPont. These were the men, the industrial titans who set up the Negro colleges, Tuskegee Institute, and all the rest of them. They openly and blatantly handpicked our leadership. And our leadership, the first thing they would do when a white man would christen him a black leader is tell black people what's wrong with us, what we need to do, and stop blaming the white man. Stop. We've been talking even. You would have Negroes will come to a brother at the end of a rope with a lynch mob around him and tell him, stop blaming the white man. And that was their job, to be a buffer. All the way up into the 60s was one of the first times we had one major. We always had organic leaders rise up. Marcus Garvey, Carlos Cooks, that even Father Divine, we would have these characters, these leaders, these thinkers that would rise up from the ranks of the black people with no white sanction, no white support. But none of those leaders ever got national prominence. They never were official leaders. They were always upstarts. They were always on the fringe. Up until the 60s. You had a black leader start to emerge that had no white sponsorship, no white certification, no white approval, and no white money. Because black people, from the plantation to Reconstruction to Jim Crow and legal segregation, was like, enough of this. Enough of this. Because even, Dr. King was handpicked. Dr. Martin Luther King, he was cut from that same cloth. Now, he went off, quote unquote, literally and figuratively, he went off the plantation. And then I'm not saying white folks don't still do that. Obama had been groomed for over a decade by Zbigniew Brzezinski, the grand chessboard. Obama was a traditional black leader who had no organic relationship, no real commitment, no real consciousness. But he was handpicked and groomed into an axe handle by our oppressors. But you had a lot of black leaders that were I'm not saying all the handpicked leaders were bad. Some of them, like Adam Clayton Powell, actually, were dutiful, responsible leaders to the extent to where they were. Adam Clayton Powell was a dutiful bureaucrat, was a dutiful politician. If Adam Clayton Powell was running for Congress in my district, I'd vote for him without any regret or hesitation. So I'm not saying they were all bad, but they were beholden. Some of them had good intentions. Some of them really thought, I can go take the white man's money and do the black man's bidding. And maybe you can, to an extent. You can only go so far with that. And like Dr. King, he had to say, hey, I can no longer morally tell my people that we're going to need a revolution. Dr. King essentially said, we're going to need a revolution to fix this. All this marching stuff was for naught. I got my head busted and my house bombed for next to nothing. I'm integrating my people into a burning house. They told me I couldn't bring up class and economics, and I fell for the okie doke. But now I'm here, y'all. Now I woke. I'm no longer broke. And bam, shot him in the throat. Jesse set him up, and Jesse was like, "Oh, move aside." Jesse pushed aside King's Courts, and I was like, "I can keep the rhetoric. I can carry this mantle. Pay me, boss." But anyway, there was a problem. The black community stopped listening to these hand-picked white leaders by and large, especially the young black folks. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. We was just out of sorts. We were just beside ourselves. We started wearing afros, and instead of wearing them broke iron overalls, wearing them dusty suits, we started wearing leather jackets and leather gloves and dashikis. And we'd go and get afro picks and whatever African trinket, anything that looked African, that sounded African, black folks wanted, and say, to hell with this honky mess. And the white man was like, oh, and they went to their roster, they went to their spice cabinet and started picking out these particular black leaders and saying, here's your leader, here. And we were like, send that Uncle Tom, handkerchief head, new Negro out. We listening to Malcolm, we listening to you. We're going with Chairman Fred. And so then the white man figured out, I can no longer use these polished, articulate blacks. I can no longer use these hand-picked blacks because their rhetoric is whack. They can no longer come to black people and say, well, now listen, I know you're angry. You have every right to be angry, but that is no excuse. That is no excuse to be burning. That's no excuse to be rioting. Two wrongs don't make a right. Wait, be patient. Vote Democrat. Black people was like, yo, you can kiss my rump. Not all black people, but enough black people to make the system feel threatened. So that's when the system came up with took the same black people, the same polished, shined up shoes that with that little, they had that little buzz cut Negroes and say, hey, Negroes that I own, y'all put on the dashikis. Y'all put on the afros. Y'all come out there with the same anti-right rhetoric. Call me a devil. Call the system, call for the bring down of the system. So I want you to change your rhetoric, but I want you to serve the same purpose. So we had these we lost Malcolm, but we got Farrakhan. We lost King, but we got, what's his name? Jesse. We lost Huey P., but we got Milana Karinga. You got all these black leaders that had the same militant anti-establishment rhetoric, but all that blackness ended up with the same outcome: appeasement, compromise, erosion of the movement. But black people didn't recognize this, and this is who Khalid called the new Negro. The old Negro dressed different than the black masses. He talked different than the black masses. He moved different than the black masses. But now the new Negro, who has the same job as the old school house slave, has the same job as the old Uncle Tom, has the same job as the old integrationist, he has a new look. Now you'll be at Kwanzaa, and he'd be the new Negro, be the blackest dude. He'd be the one that just got back from Ghana. He'd be the one that had the authentic dashiki, authentic mud cloth and kente cloth, not made in China kente cloth. He'd be the blackest dude in the pack. The most conscious brother, has the best. You go to his house, he got every book by every African scholar, and he is so black, and he'd be the first one to call out whites. He'd be the first one to call out the system. But then you were like, great, let's put this rhetoric, let's put this aesthetic into practical action. Well, hold on now. Calm down. So what the oppressor and what the Uncle Tom figured out is you can no longer be a Clarence Thomas Uncle Tom. Clarence Thomas is, after Obama, was probably the most prominent and powerful black man in politics in all of America. And Clarence Thomas couldn't call together 5 black people to do nothing. Black people don't own, we don't even talk about Clarence Thomas. When Clarence Thomas betrays us on the Supreme Court every time it's in session, when Clarence Thomas voted down the Voting Rights Act and all of that, when Clarence Thomas put a death nail in affirmative action, black people we didn't even shrug, like, it's Clarence Thomas, what do you want? If Clarence Thomas was on the Supreme Court with that same type of behavior in the 50s and 60s, he'd still be a hero. Your grandma would still be telling you, you can be anything you want, son. Just look at Clarence Thomas. You can one day get up there. He'd be a leader no matter how much he stabbed us in the back, because look at where he is. Look at what he's achieved. But black people now are like, man, look, I don't care where you are and what you achieve. You got to be down. So that's why Obama, he was a classic new Negro. He was on both sides. He was able to play both sides. He was able to be a traditional instrument of our oppressor and still have our love. Because number one, he had a dark-skinned, black, soul sister, round the way, South-Sider, rada-dada wife in Michelle. And Michelle provided so much black legitimacy and black cover. It's like these fake rappers out here, these non-street rappers, Tekashi or whatever, they get out here and they, yo, Philly, gang, gang, gang. And what they do is when they get a little money is they pay these real gangsters to stand around them to give them legitimacy. Who ain't put in no work, so they have real felons, real murderers, real shotters, real ballers to gather around them for a fee and say, listen, you give me legitimacy just by standing next to me. Treyway and all that. It's the same thing in black politics. Listen, I'm a surfer dude, hang 10. You know, Obama literally is a good Jewish boy from the sunny city of Hawaii. He ain't got no black experience, no black consciousness. You went from surfing in Hawaii to hanging out in Indonesia to sitting on a bunk smoking weed and doing coke with white boys in Harvard. And I'm not outing Obama. He put it all, dreams of my father, audacity of hope. He said it. He admitted to doing the drugs and all that. He admitted to having identity issues, that he didn't want to be Barack. That was too hard. Barack, oh, that's a weird name. So he started going by Barry Obama. And you go to the people that went to college with Obama. You will go to people that came up with Obama, white boys, these frat boys. He was a Kavanaugh. Obama was hanging out with the Kavanaugh type. And you say, hey, you know Barack? Like, I don't know no Barack. What are you talking about? It's like, I'm sorry, Barry. Oh, yeah, Barry was a good guy. He was great. Great. Love Barry. Really good basketball player. Very articulate. So he got Michelle to give him that legitimacy, that cred. And the rest is history. But if Obama had come out like Clarence Thomas, black people wouldn't have voted for him. How do I know? Remember they were trying to put out Colin Powell? Remember Colin Powell? And he's a yardie. He's a Jamaican yard. Colin Powell's a yard man. He had cred, but people were like, black folks was like, man, please. He was up there with George Bush. He was up there with Ronald Reagan. He said, nah. So black people started saying, listen, you got to give us more than just black skin. The axe handle was made of wood, but that don't stop it from chopping down trees. So the new Negro was like, I got the same mandate, the same responsibility, the same love and obligation to the system of oppression as the old school Uncle Tom, but I got this candy coating of black consciousness, of black vernacular, of black, and they are some of the, I see it in Chicago every time I go to any type of black event or black gathering. I see new Negroes all up in there being the blackest people, having the most militant, conscious, beautiful rhetoric. But when you look at their practical, grounded ideology, I mean, Umar is like the Prince of Pan-African. If he's the Prince of Pan-Africanism, he's the king of the new Negroes. Because when you look at, like I say, I mean, I don't know how many times I could say this. People still falling for it. If you look at Umar's formula for black liberation, for Pan-African power, it's no different than focus on the family. It's no different than the right-wing Christian platform. And the same black man is bring down this system. Don't vote in this system. And the system was like, fine, we're going to take your license. Whoa, boss, calm down. Calm down. And there are certain leaders that were like, man, the more where black suffering is their social capital. Al Sharpton. The more we suffer, the more power and prominence that some black leaders get. You know, if no black people are being shot and dragged down the street and safe, suffering atrocities, nobody thinks about Al Sharpton. But Sharpton is there to give voice to our pain. And if his whole career is based on giving voice and bringing coverage to our pain, if our pain stops, what's left for that nigga to do? Same thing with Clarence Thomas. I mean, not Clarence, but Freudian there. With Dr. Umar. And they keep us distracted. So Dr. Umar will say, don't vote, don't engage in politics, but engage in... Dr. Umar will say, single mothers, the gays, our own schools. He never... When does he talk about capitalism, imperialism, neocolonialism? You know, he's more interested with what random individual black people are doing under the covers. But he has the best rhetoric and the most absurd solutions. That's the new Negro. To confuse things. So now the average black person in 2018 is standing in the middle of reality and looking in all directions saying, who's with us and who's against us? And you can't say, because the people who are against us are out there like, the white man is the devil, bring down the system. We need justice. They waving around guns. They looking like bloodthirsty Black Panthers. But then when you get them down, okay, yeah, oh, I love all of that. All that is great. Yeah, the white man, the system, yes. Okay, now let's execute the plan. Excuse me. Oh, I got a lecture I got to give in Japan. I'll see you when I get back. Umar flies into town and flies right in here to Chicago, walks over the corpses of our youth, goes to DeSable, gives us a riling rousel. Yeah, boom, and then he's out. Malcolm, they'll tell you when Malcolm would show up in a town, he'd leave. He'd set up a mosque. He'd set up a cooperative. He'd set up a study group. Everywhere Malcolm went, there was something that the people had left besides a good feeling, besides some insights. They had some material, concrete, something to build on. And, you know, that wasn't all Malcolm X. That was the people. That was the people, but it's an interplay. So the new Negro that Khalid talked about in this presentation I played in the intro this morning, said that now we got to not just look out for the handkerchief head Uncle Tom. We don't just look out for the Bill Cosby who will tell you to your face, black people are the problem. And don't blame the white man. Now we got black people that'll come and say, you know, I've just come back from Ghana. I just come back from the pyramids of Giza. I love Africa. And I got my black wife and I got my black life and I'm so African. And has the exact same agenda and serves the exact same purpose as the old school Uncle Tom who would tell you to your face, I hate niggas. I hate my own skin. And I don't want no black woman. I never go to Africa. I'm going to go to Paris. I'm going to go to Prague. And so we're confused. And we still haven't figured it out. We still like, oh, we really think there's a difference between Barack Obama and Clarence Thomas. Political, ideological, operational difference. We still think that, but because so we can't look at the surface and we can't just listen to the rhetoric anymore. Because they got a trick. They've weaponized pro-blackness. Our oppressors, white folks, have weaponized pro-blackness. And now whenever you get together, it used to be when you got into, and during chattel slavery, when you got around the bonfire, you knew who to invite and who shouldn't be there, and who to throw out and who to let in. Same thing when the Garveys and everybody got together, we knew who was who. But the new Negro has confused all of that. And that also creates a lot of suspicion. That also creates a lot of which is what they want. So I come to link to build with my allies here in Chicago. Am I a new Negro? Is he a new Negro? He's saying the right things. He looks the right way. Look at this sister. She got the locks. And, you know, look at that brother. He smells like patchouli and sage and Nag Champa. Everybody looks like they're supposed to look. Everybody's saying the right things. But how do we know? And we can't really go off of this suspicion. You can't create an organization. You can't execute an agenda having all this suspicion. That's why I came up with the new Negro self-exposure protocol, which basically means I don't care how black you are, how conscious you are, how down you claim to be. Once you expose yourself to be other than what you present yourself as, We use your own words and actions. We don't come with I think this, I believe this, I heard this. It's like, no, specifically, you said this. You have outed yourself. You self-exposed. And when you self-expose, we isolate, we expose, we isolate, and we expel them. It's that simple. It's that simple. And that way, you don't have to worry about distrust. You don't have to worry about rumors. You don't have to worry about he said, she said. So if somebody comes to me and is like, yeah, man, that brother ain't about nothing. And I would have to say, well, do you have any self-exposure that he's engaged in or she's engaged in? I don't want to know what you heard, what you believe. He said, she said. Give me a self-exposure. So that way we can just do away with the gossip. I mean, do your gossip, whatever. But when it comes to operational practices, when it comes to our protocols, gossip has no place there. And that has allowed me to better, because when I first got, man, y'all don't want to know my story about organizing here in Chicago. It ain't pretty. I mean, it is Halloween, so I can tell y'all the horror story of trying to organize and build in the city of Chicago. And it's something else. And I thought, you know, that old song, New York, New York, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. That's a goddamn lie. As far as the continental United States, Chicago. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. New York, lie. New York got better PR than Chicago because that's the biggest lie. And I really bought it. Hey, I made it in New York. I was organizing. Hey, I you know, opened a little cooperative. Hey, I made things happen in New York. So Chicago shouldn't be nothing, please. Oh boy, played myself. I played myself. But now I learn, you know, learn or burn. So I continue, try to get over this political inertia and continue on. Keep striving. It's the struggle. But anyway, these new Negroes, I'm saying you ain't got to walk into your meetings, your organization, your community with all this paranoia and distrust. Just have some awareness and be observational. And when somebody self-exposes, make sure everybody knows. You expose, hey, this is what that brother claimed to be about. This is what the evidence, concrete material evidence of what that brother is truly about. Here's the info, based on from a confirmable, valid source, that person themselves. This is a new Negro. He's got the right rhetoric. She's got the right look, but they have they don't have the right agenda. They don't have the community's interest at heart. It's self-interest, or even worse than self-interest, interest of our oppressors. But moving on. Amazon, $15 an hour. Can y'all believe it? The fight for 15, the emerging service industry has given us $15 an hour. So you know what that means. You know when we got some good news. You know when the Lord touch it. Y'all know what that means, y'all. Don't play with me now. We gotta do it, $15 an hour. Look at God! 15. Did I say 14? Did I say 13? Did I say 12? I said $15 an hour. Bezos, $15 an hour. Bezos. Cut. Amazon has promised all of its employees $15 an hour. And analysts and economists are saying, in order to remain competitive, other large-scale retailers such as Walmart, Target will also go to $15 an hour. And retailers such as Costco, who have in the past paid their employees living wage with benefits, also will have to increase in order to remain competitive. That Amazon has literally transformed or will be transforming the retail workers' lives. Bezos, Amazon, Lord, put your spirit over internet. Cut. Okay, now are y'all done? I've worked up a little sweat. Now it's back to life, back to reality. And then see, I don't want to be that negative cat. When it's good news, it's good news. But now it's time to tell y'all about the other side of this. I looked into this. And I have to say, thank goodness we are on AM 1680. Thank goodness I'm being overseen by the FCC, or else I'd have some curse words for y'all. Bezos is full of cow manure. Now, Bernie Sanders was constructing what they call a Bezos bill or an Amazon bill that basically said any multinational corporation that employs workers in the United States will have to repay the federal government for any welfare or state or federal benefits that its employees have to go. So if you work for Walmart and your children are eligible for Medicaid, the government can tax Walmart to make up for that deficit. If you work for Amazon and you qualify for food stamps, the government can go and tax Amazon Inc. for that. And they were even saying in the gig economy that would translate to the gig economy would have to stop saying that these people are not employees. Stop pretending as though these people are independent contractors, thus paying Social Security, insurance, disability. So this was a major bill that Senator Bernie Sanders was pushing through. And they were also saying that not in the midterm, but in the 2020 election, this would be a major running point for the Progressive Caucus of the Democratic Party, where every major politician would have to say, where do you stand on the Amazon bill? Are you with the corporations or are you with the workers? And they didn't want this to be an issue. They didn't want everyday people. They didn't want the unwashed masses, the peasants, the serfs, the commoners, to even start to debate these issues. So Bezos was like, damn, I'm going to have to head off this. I can't have the Bezos bill. I can't have my name ringing out in the streets like that. Everybody looks at me and, I'm the world's richest man. Perhaps the richest man in human history. Blah, blah, blah. But then black people, no, Mansa Musa was the richest man in history. There ain't nothing to brag about. I can't stand, I spit on Mansa Musa. But I digress. So Bezos, who is a cunning man, to me, I think he is a psychotic person, but also very cunning. They say psychopaths are often very smart, very charismatic. Said, I got to head this off. So he says, I'm going to get a headline, because he owns a lot of media. He said, I need to get a really positive headline that is not only going to make people dance in the streets, but put their asses back to sleep. How you sleep and dance at the same time? By getting some happy information without looking into the substance of that information. That's how you dancing in the street while you sleep. Instead of sleepwalking, you sleep dancing. You ain't fully woke. So Bezos got this headline. By the end of 2018, all Amazon employees will pay all of its employees $15 an hour. Living wage. Ain't that what you monkeys been crying about? Ain't that what you peasants and you serfs and you honkies and you peckerwoods and you rednecks, you unwashed masses, you ungrateful peasants? Didn't y'all say y'all wanted $15 an hour? Then here you go. Just throw it in your face. Ball it up and throw that $15. Take it. I can't stand y'all. Y'all beat me. I'm the big, bad, richest man in the world. I'm the big, bad multinational corporation, and you beat me. You got me. I'm dead. You remember in the old movies, they stick the sword under their arms to make it look like, you got me. And all these workers are like, yay, we got them. But the reality is, Amazon has already offset the cost. And it's looking like projections are showing that Amazon will actually pay its workers less money and make larger profits, paying its workers $15 an hour, because one of the things that Amazon intends to do is begin to cut overtime, time and a half pay, So they'll just hire more workers at part-time. So even though you're making $15 an hour, it's very likely that many of its distribution centers' hours of individual workers will be cut. Um, Also, Amazon had a program of giving out stock rewards, and Amazon stock at this point is over $2,000 a share, and workers could earn stock in the company. That is being deaded. No more stock ownership. So if you want Amazon stock as an Amazon worker, you are not awarded or rewarded that stock. You have to go and buy it. And even at $15 an hour, you're not eligible to play in that game. Nobody's making that kind of money. No more monthly bonuses. They're cutting out monthly bonuses for the workers that really willing to kill themselves on the floor. And and also there are employees at Amazon who already make $15 an hour or more. They're already high-paid employees, and so they think that they're also going to greatly reduce, if not end, the incremental wage increases for long-term employees. And if you work at Amazon, been working at Amazon for over 5 years, and you've worked yourself up to a supervisory position, or through bonuses and overtime and stock options, you've been able to make over the $15 an hour when you break it down your hourly wage versus your total income. And the average long-term employee say they could lose as much as $3,000 a year in income from Amazon with this new move to $15 an hour, and with counseling out these other opportunities to extract income at working in Amazon. About $3,000 an hour for its already higher end employees. And most of the higher employees are the ones who have been working there 5 years or more. And Bezos did say if you're currently making over $15 an hour or more, you'll get a $1 an hour raise. So if you currently work at Amazon, and let's say you have someone working at Amazon that has like making $7.50 an hour, their wage will double. But if you make $15 an hour, then you'll make $16 an hour as this new policy is implemented. As you lose your stock rewards, you lose your bonuses. And they anticipate that all of the longer term employees at Amazon are going to start to drop off, and they're going to have high rates of turnover. So they're going to have all these guys come in from the bottom and opportunities for advancement. So it's a poison pill. It's superficial. And as I have said since the beginning of the Fight for 15 movement, a minimum wage means nothing without a maximum wage. A minimum wage is a floor. And every economy should have a floor under which no one should drop. I support that. But if you don't have a roof, then what happens to the floor gets warped. It gets damaged from exposure. And this is a fiat economy, which means there is an infinite amount of money that can be produced, and there is no limits on how the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Congress can expand or contract the economy through manipulation of interest rates, through implementation of policies and regulations. So they can render that $15 an hour to nothing. And then in another 10 to 15 years, you're going to be fighting for $25 an hour. And when you get to $25 an hour, it'll be less than the $15 an hour in overall purchasing capacity due to inflation and interest rates. So if you don't put a ceiling on the economy, if you don't have a maximum wage, the minimum wage don't mean a damn thing. But they're playing us. And so now you have everybody in the streets, $15 an hour, $15 an hour. It was a time where $7 an hour was an upper middle class income. There was a time where $25,000 a year put you up in the upper income. Making $25,000 a year could guarantee you a house, 2 cars, and be a one-income family, and send all of your little rugrats to college. There's inflation. So $15 an hour is no more a living wage. It's not and I'm not hating on y'all. Get your $15 an hour, get your food stamps, get your Medicaid. I advocate universal welfare for all citizens. I advocate for a guaranteed minimum income. I'm a socialist. So believe you me, I'm not scoffing at $15 an hour. I'm not dissing that. But what I'm saying is, what I'm scoffing is at the $1.5 million an hour that Bezos is earning. We're only going for half the things. We're trying to put a floor down without dealing with the roof. We leave the roof off and put the floor down, and then when we finally finish, polish, strip, and buff the floors, and the floors are looking nice, here comes a rainstorm, here comes a windstorm, and the floor is all warped and jacked up. So as you fight for $15 an hour, you should fight for an upper income tax rate of 99%. I think there should be an upper income tax rate of 100%. After every $1 million you make, everything you make above and beyond that in profit is taxed at 100%. I'm for the abolition of profits. You get no profits. You only get earnings. You only get earnings. Profit is unearned income. I'm for increasing the inheritance tax to 80, 90 to 100%. I'm not playing with y'all. But working class people who don't stand to inherit a damn thing, who don't have any unearned income, who do not receive 1 penny of dividends, every dime they get they work for, they advocate for policies that benefit the rich that have no impact on them. Why? Because you've been indoctrinated to. You've been indoctrinated to believe one of your kids, one of your little snot-nosed kids might be the next Michael Jordan. Your beautiful little pigtail daughter might be the next Oprah Winfrey. So when you get your $1 billion, you want to be able to ball. Even though, statistically, historically, culturally, you're going to die as broke as you lived. You were born. People die in the same class that they're born into by and large. And they take these Jay-Z's, they take these Kanye's who started from the bottom now here, and they're like, look, this could be you. And out of 500 million people, there'll be 4 of them that go from rags to riches. And then all the other 500 million people are like, that could be me. No, it can't. It can't be you. You can't win. You can't make it. You can't. That Michael Jackson said it in The Wiz. You can't win. You can't make it. And you can't get out of the game. I'm here to discourage you. All these rich people, from Oprah Winfrey telling you, if you ask the universe for some money, the universe and the stars and the cosmos and the comets and the dark matter are going to dookie down money on your head. You're an idiot to listen to Oprah's financial advice. And Will Smith will tell you, if you show up on time. My grandmother worked as a secretary in a doctor's office. And every morning, you remember those dry Afro perms women in the 70s would wear? And rayon silk, brown, cream color blouse with brown. Man, they used to dress horrible in the 60s. And those slacks with the built-in sewn-in crease. And them tight shoes old black women would wear with the little puff of fat coming out over the little 2-inch heel. She'd get up every morning and show up ahead of time and make coffee and kept that place humming. She tried to retire 2 or 3 times. And they were like, oh, Miss Netta, we can't lose you. She showed up, and Will Smith said if she showed up on time and she worked hard, she died as poor as she lived. Or she not died, but she's going to die as poor as she lived. Showing up on time ain't the way to wealth. The only way you can get rich in this society is to extract and exploit someone else's labor. Her doctor, who she worked for, got rich. The only way you can get rich is by extracting from other people's labor. There is nobody who can do $1 billion worth of work. There's nobody who's really done $1 million worth of work. If you're a millionaire, you have gotten paid off of other people's labor. So what you tell, but Will Smith and Oprah Winfrey can't say that, you don't ask the universe a damn thing, and showing up on time don't mean a damn thing. You got to get yourself in a position where you can get other people to do work that you don't do, and you can extract profit or extract resources from other people's labor. And I ain't saying work for you, because I had people work for me. But my employees worked alongside me. I've never been like at home with my feet up while I had people doing work for me. When I had my little restaurant, I'd be right there cleaning the toilets and cleaning off tables right next to my so-called employees. We work together. I need to set up a situation where I could have a dozen restaurants and I'm sitting at home and everybody else showing up, but sending money to me, even though I ain't got to stand over that grill. I ain't got to go down to the distribution center and get our stuff, order, balance the book, where I ain't doing nothing but chilling. That's profit. So my workers earned their money, and I earned my money right next to the workers. Even though I had the ownership title, I was a worker. So I wasn't going to get rich. Or as I got rich, everybody who worked with me and for me would gain as I gain and lose as I lose. We were all in it together. I set it up that way. So that's the game. That's the damn level of the game. So it's a hustle, it's a lie, it's a trick. It's a trick. And, but hey, somebody gonna come up. Some suffering, struggling people gonna experience a little come up. And will they use that little extra money to empower themselves to continue to fight, or are they just gonna go to sleep? Got my $15 an hour. The fight is won. Let's go to sleep for another generation until it's time to fight for 25. And by the time we get 25, it's going to the basic minimum wage, the basic standard of living is going to cost you $50 an hour. Then the fight for 50. Then the fight for $1 million an hour. When a loaf of bread is $10 million an hour. This is a fiat economy. Value is subjective. Look at the stock market. Elon Musk sends out a lying ass tweet and damn near collapsed the global economy. This stuff is all monopoly. The only thing that's real in this economy is the people's labor. And the people who get the least amount of compensation are the laborers. Why are we going along with this? Why are we going along with this? Why aren't we having general strikes? Why are we asking Bezos for a goddamn thing? Why is Bezos in a position to grant, one man in a position to grant 1 million other people anything or deny them anything? We can upend this. There's no rule. This wasn't written in the Bible. This economy, this economic system wasn't sent to us on high. It's not a law of physics. It's not thermodynamics. It's nothing that's fixed. It's not gravity. It's something that people made up. And we can make up something else to say the change. Why are we trying to pay off all this damn unpayable $1 trillion of debt? Debt jubilee, debt erase. What you gonna do? It's $1 million. It ain't enough jail cells. It ain't enough fucking bloated cops out there. Ugh. Excuse my language. It ain't enough cops out there. They can't. Without our cooperation, we can't be oppressed. Now, I'm not Cosby and y'all saying our oppression is our fault. And it ain't enough black people to do it. You need some progressive, revolutionary, communist, anarcho whites, Antifa, the Asians. I mean the workers of the world. This ain't even just a black problem. There's white people toiling away in coal mines too. I'm going a little transracial on this issue. This is a class problem. And not even saying that the class issues, because we know when socialism came around, there was a bunch of racist socialists. Even in the socialist utopia of Cuba, black people still got to sit on the back of the free public transportation. And the white Cubans sit up front. So we know. But I'm just saying, in the context of this Jeff Bezos nonsense, why is humanity, why are even white people, where are your guillotines? White people actually have. I would encourage, even if you're a crazy black militant, study white labor history. If nothing else, read Howard Zinn. Read Eugene Debs. Read about the Wobblies, International Workers of the World, Big Jim Haywood, the Haymarket Riot. White people have a pretty good history of bringing it to their elites. They have a good history of that. Where are those white folks? Even you Confederate flag, wrestling, watching boxcar racing, whatever y'all, you good old boys. Yeah, okay, yeah, blacks, yeah, whatever. But what about the Bezos? All you white militia dudes, where are the white folks? Where are white folks allowing this? Virginia? And white people out there literally voting for politicians that promise to put them in coal mines. You vote for me and I'll open up the coal mine. I'm not voting for you. I don't want to go in a damn coal mine. We got all this renewable energy. We don't need coal. Literally, coal is obsolete. We don't need fossil fuels anymore. We can redo the grid. Send me up a windmill before you send me down a damn coal. But what the hell is going on, white folks? I'm sorry, black people. Let me talk to white people for a second. Your poverty rate, y'all just gonna smoke opium and hate black folks? And think that's gonna fix anything? Get off the opiates and just give this. Listen, black folks, we gonna always be here. You got all your life to hate black people. You got all your way. You can be hating us, you hate the Asians, hate the damn immigrants. Listen, there's always going to be people that talk different and look different for you to hate on. But now you got bigger issues. Wouldn't you rather hate wouldn't you rather burn a cross on organic, non-GMO wood? Wouldn't you want to make the crosses out of that? Wouldn't you like to have your sheets for your Klan rally be organic cotton, fair trade cotton? Come on, white folks. There's a way to hate ecologically, socialistically, communally. I mean, damn. I'm saying we could all races. We can do our race war, but let's get the class war over first, and then we can get back to the race war, white folks. I'm just so disappointed in white people. I'm not disappointed when white people are racist or even sexist and misogynist. That's their culture. That's all of Western culture. You got to go back and blame the Greeks and the Romans for that. That's just who they be. They don't know how to. That's just whiteness. But this class thing, I've seen that y'all been able to understand this class thing. I've read your literature. I know your history. Get out the guillotines, white folks. And like I said, after you cut off the heads of the billionaires, after you burn down the mansions, after you go to the Federal Reserve and take it apart brick by brick, then you can get back. We'll still be here ready for you to hate us. Don't think we had our class revolution. We had our communist revolution. Yay! And okay, now let's get back to hating blacks and Mexicans and queers. Where'd they go? They snuck away. We promised. When you're all fighting the class war, we're not going to sneak away. We'll be here for you to hate us when you're done. But damn, white people, it don't got to be this way. You know, you had your comedy. Go study your history. Go study your labor history. You know, it ain't enough black people. All those bombs, all those guns and bullets. For every person in America, there's like half a dozen guns. It ain't enough black people to shoot. You won't even run through 1/3 of your ammunition. You won't even be able to shoot half your guns just killing black folks. Go kill your elites. Go kill the rich white folks. Go kill the owners. And then we'll still be here and you won't even run through all your stuff. Damn, white people. Okay, I'm done. You can tune out, white folks. I'm back to talking to my folks. I just don't understand this class issue. I mean, white people, y'all just are just so disappointing. I remember when black people were like, we support Hillary, and white folks were like, we support Bernie. And I said to my wife, are white folks are these white Democrats gonna let these black Democrats punk them out of their candidate? And they did. What? I mean, white people are losing their mojo. Y'all losing it. Anyway, get back to being, we'll stay out of it. And black people, if white folks heed my words, and they start going after the Fed, going after the global elite, they go run up in the Koch brothers in one of their mansions and drag their asses out and tar and feather the white billionaires. Leave them to their task. We always jumping in. Like Dick Gregory said, the white man didn't build a nuclear bomb to blow up Africa. He built those nuclear bombs to blow up other white people. And we see the white man build his nuke and he's running off. And we say, hey, white man, where you going with that nuke? And we get in it. When we say, hey, I see you over there, whitey, go on. See you when you get back. What, the Russians? Communism? Okay. Last I saw, them Russians look white as you do, so y'all go on and get it. Get your freak on, white folks. World War I. How you got black men? World War I. We're charging Montezuma to the halls of Tripoli. What the hell? Black men singing, I'm a Marine. Hoorah. Brah. We talking about the Red Tails? Tuskegee Airmen, we celebrating that? Buffalo Soldiers? Stay out of white folks' business. And tend to your own. My great-grandma Bowie, who was not a rice woman, my great-grandma Bowie was one of them old black, Midwestern, by way of the Deep South black women. Say you call her an African, she see that as an insult. She was colored most of her life, and she just got black in the 80s. She was colored up until 1982. I'm a colored woman. Okay, I'm black, fine. But she was one of the most Afrocentric people I ever heard. She was communal, but I'm not going to get, all I'm saying is she told me one time, stay up out of white folks' business and tend to your own. Because getting it mixed up in white folks' business, ask the Japanese, you get the nukes. While all the other people fighting in the war, pretty much they were signing documents. Okay, we'll sign this armistice. we'll sign this armistice treaty. And Japan was like, oh, we signing treaties now? We surrendering? Okay, nah, you not surrendering. We got something special for you. Now, the Germans, they can surrender. The Austrians, they can surrender. You know, the Italians, they can surrender. And Japanese were like, we want to surrender too then. Let's sign some documents. Let's negotiate. Nope, nuclear bomb for you. That's what happened when you're not white and you get in the middle of white folks' business. But I digress. Some other stuff I want to talk about. I'm going to have to say this to next week. I want to talk about all this free trade. We got black people out here talking about Trump is bringing jobs because Trump is ending NAFTA and Trump is renegotiating trade deals with South Korea. He's got a trade war with China and NAFTA's being and he canceled the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the CAFTA, the Central America Free Trade. Trump is bringing jobs, making America great again. Now I can see, again, white folks falling for that. But black people really think they about to bring back the automotive and steel industry back to Detroit. They think they're going to be like their great uncles and their grandfathers and be old steel men and rail men and have the calloused masculine hands of manhood, and they can go and drag a woman back to her house and throw her in an apron, and we're going to have Leave It to Beaver, all black Leave It to Beaver. That ain't how it works. And if you don't know what Leave It to Beaver is, it's the model of how a family should function. Go look it up. And black people are not only falling for this, we got some black scholars and black political analysts out here trying to sell black people. The Mormon church, and talk about separation of church, the Mormon church in Utah has agreed to medical marijuana, the most conservative, religious, theocratic state in the union, is doing, you know. So, and one of my favorite authors, David Graeber, came out with a new book that I just learned about a couple of days ago called BS Jobs, Bull Feces Jobs. But he says it, which is very interesting. And I correlate that with The End of Work and Disciplined Minds by Jeff Schmidt. There's some really good books out here. I ain't saying black folks, Dick Gregory told us before he passed, he said, study white folks. Know thy enemy, know thyself. Y'all can't just read Francis Cress Welsing all day. Y'all, there's other, and Amos Wilson. Not to say don't read it, do read it, but what I wanted to talk about, the topic of today's show, believe it or not, I think I've been touching and flirting with the topic all morning, so glean your meaning. Practical solutions and rational revolutions. And I did kind of play myself now that I look at the term. I don't have the time to get into this like I wanted to. But like I said, you know, it is what it is. The reason I'm saying this is because we got a lot of black people out here that are proposing what we should or shouldn't do. We got from the full spectrum. We got black people saying, hey, go for self, do you, self-care, living my best life, the individualist blacks that tell you, you know, get your money, do your investments, get your schooling, and you make it as a black person. You be the next Oprah. And when you get there, maybe, just maybe, if you feel like it, you can reach back and help another black person or two. And you have the other end of the spectrum where black people are saying, you know, the society's about to collapse, it's about to be Mad Max, descend into race war, buy your guns, buy your MREs, and build you a bunker. So we got all these different divergent assessments and solutions offered to black people. And every single one of these solutions, you get black people huddling up in these various factions of what they gonna do, or what we should do, or what we supposed to do. Umar saying send him to law school, and he's gonna go to court and defeat the white man, and hit the white man over the head with his own law books. But we gotta pay him $300,000. We got some people saying education is the solution, other people saying stay out of their schools. It's all over the place. And people, not only do we not agree on the solution, we don't even agree on what the problem is. We got black people out here talking about we are our own worst enemies. We bring ourselves down. It's all on us. And if we just act a different way. We got black people out here talking about we are cursed. The Hebrew Israelites. And many people subscribe to this. Even this was a popular, and it's not, we can't just blame the Hebrew Israelites. The Christians for a long time, the Hamitic curse, the curse of Ham, the mark of Cain, the black skin, cursed to be laborers for our oppressors. But they say the Nation of Islam also pushes this rhetoric, And a lot of the non-member followers of the Nation of Islam, the people who still are crazy enough to listen to Farrakhan lectures and think there's anything of value there, they say there's going to be a divine redemption. There's going to be an individual savior or a great cataclysm that's going to come and free black folks and give us our redemption. And some people say all we got to do is wait. Some people say we got to do a little bit more than wait. We have to submit and accept that we are the descendants of the tribe of Judah, the lost tribe of Israel, that we are the true Jews. And when the true children of Israel become aware of who they are, God will re-invoke his covenant with us. Some say we all got to move to Israel. Some say we all got to move to Ghana. Some, it's so much mess. And I'm just talking about amongst the conscious. I'm not even talking about outside of the conscious movement. All this confusion is just amongst the conscious. And the conscious community, I still think the conscious community is the best community there is. Than the black capitalist, the black Christian, the black integrationist, the frat and sorority, divine non-Negroes. I'm saying there's a lot of problems, and nobody's got more criticisms of the conscious community than I. But this is where I throw down my stake. So what really is the problem? And what frustrates me most about this, all this nonsense, all this confusion, all this divergent rhetoric, all these demagogues and cults of personality, is that it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple what the problem is. And the solutions to the problem is not that complex. But where we fall down in is the execution. Because once we truly honestly define what the problem is, and we accept that there are some viable solutions, they put a great toll on us. It's a great responsibility that falls on our shoulders. The problem is that the people who govern and rule the world are unfit to govern and rule the world. Who rules the world? White people. And I know some would say this is an oversimplification. I don't care. Just because it's simple don't mean it's inaccurate. White people set out to have empires. First they had a regional empire, then they had a continental empire, and everywhere they went, they enslaved, they did the same thing. The Greeks had a regional empire, and then they set up continental empires, and then they went on to have global empires. And this small minority coming out of Europe has not only taken over the world, they have infected the world with their extremely warped way of social relations and environmental relations. How do humans relate to one another, and how do we relate to the greater ecosystem? Now, I know it wasn't all white people, and I know the white people don't like being called white people any more than a black man who doesn't commit crimes doesn't like being treated like a criminal by cops because some brother did commit a crime. So yeah, we surviving it, so will you. But there has been internal resistance from day one. There have been philosophies and ideas. Jean-Paul Sartre, John Stuart Mill, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. There have been white people to say, hey, this ain't right. The way we do things, the way we interact with each other, and the way we interact with others, people of the New World, of the Dark Continent, of Asia, this is not the way to be. And those same white people get treated just like the black people who say this is not the way to be. They get exiled, they get executed, they get incarcerated. Right now, there are like Sean Swain. There are white I'm not saying go march. I ain't saying shed no tears, because for every white political prisoners, we got more blacks. But there are white political prisoners. There are white anarchists. There are white socialists that have been assassinated by the state, that have been driven into exile, or that have been who are political prisoners, like Sean Swain, really funny guy, but he's in jail. They're never gonna let this dude out, and he's a white anarcho-syndicalist. We like to think, like I said, we have a unique relationship with white people, that they only enslave us, that they only lynch us, and that they only hate us. But the late, great Dick Gregory said, somebody got to be the nigga. The white man has always had a nigga. And when there were no black people, he made the Indian the nigga. When there were no Indians, he made the Chinese the Chinaman his nigga. When there was no blacks, no Asians, no natives, no aboriginals to make niggas, he would make niggas of his own children. He would make, his wife had to be the nigga. And look at the Salem witch trials. He'd lynch white women. Look at Kent State. He'd shoot down his own children in the street, just like he shoot us down. That's just something, I don't know. Go read The Psychopathic Personality. Go read Yurugu. And if you don't want to listen to what black folks say about white folks, go read The Iceman's Inheritance. Go read Sigmund Freud. Civilization and its discontents. Even the mainstream. I mean, it is what it is. It's not our problem, but it's our responsibility to defend ourselves from this mentality. Derrick Jensen said this culture, Western culture, has a death urge. And Derrick Jensen is an educated, trained engineer, white man, or a civil engineer or something. So that's the problem. That a small minority has taken over and imposed this will on a great majority. And even when we have decolonization in Africa, then we have Africans who take office and try to function within the global economy set up by this hyper-aggressive death urge minority. Even in the black community, you'll have a black people come together in a black exclusive place, and we're all black people, but the white mentality, white psychopathology is present in that room with all these black, pro-black, conscious black folks. And we have to work it out. And sometimes we got black folks, let's pour libations and let's cleanse the space. Let's get in the problem. Let's burn some shit. Let's all black folks, let's try to get on the same psychological wavelength, same cultural resonance. But we've been so indoctrinated. You got black people in their own homes acting like white people towards each other and towards our children. And I know white people don't like it, but hell, white people are more upset by the reality than they are more upset by people calling out the facts than they are by the reality of the facts. Europeans should not have enough power. They should not have the majority of the world's resources under their control. They should not have the territories that they occupy outside of Europe. They have no right to control or govern those territories. They have no right to have their military spread across the world. They have no right to hold within their possession arsenals, Armageddon arsenals, to kill all life forms on the planet Earth. They don't have it. It's not theirs by right. And the only way to have something that you don't deserve is to engage in crimes and criminal activities to possess it. The problem is white people. And there are white people, and if you don't want to hear from me, I can give you a long list of legitimate white scholars coming out of everywhere from MIT to Harvard that will tell you this as well. Western culture, Western mentality, Eurocentrism. And then you have other people who says if you can't beat them, join them, like the Saudi monarchy, like the Chinese Communist Party, that says, hell, we will begin to interact with the world as Europeans and beat the Europeans at their game. So we'll build our nuclear arsenal. We'll set up our capitalist, extractive, omnicidal government. Because we can't be Chinese, because if we're Chinese, we get colonized. There are African billionaires now say, I can't be an African because then I'll be poor. I can't act according to African values, African culture. I have to be Eurocentric. I have to set up extractive industries. I have to ignore the needs of my ecosystem. I have to adopt the Western mentalities and behaviors and get my own billion-dollar fortune in order to not be oppressed by the other billionaires. So it's a join them because we can't beat them situation. I have to worship their toxic patriarchal, misogynistic, genocidal gods, Armageddon religions. So if I'm not a Muslim, if I'm not a Jew, if I'm not a Christian, then I'm some type of fringe, illegitimate spiritual system. As Boots Riley said, the whole world is ravaged by their hunger for the cabbage. The whole world is ravaged by their hunger for the cabbage. Another white man, because when you talk like this, you got to throw in as many white, educated, PhD, doctorate white men as you can, or else you're just a crazy nigga ranting. Chris Hedges says the white man only wants one thing, and that's more. So our responsibility, or Abraham Lincoln, another beloved white, cherished moral icon of white people, he said the white man only wants one thing. Everybody hates us, everybody's mad at us when everybody wants everything. You people want so much. All we want is one thing. We want one little plot of land and the land adjacent to that. Other than that, we're good. So this culture, Europeans have to embark on a full-scale cultural revolution. The European social theories, the European social interactions, social relations, European economy, European governance, Western, however you call it. You don't like saying white, there's code words for white, just like there's code word for black. Western, Occidental, European, there's code words. New World, the global North. You don't like white, then use those code words. But the Western culture, the global North, they will have to embark on a full-scale fundamental transformation of their being, of their very self-concept, of their very identity. But what we see as the majority black people of the world, not just the descendant of slave, little wretched minority, 13% in the United States, but the global African majority, the global Asian majority, they're showing us we're going to double down on this omnicidal psychopathic train we're on. We're going to lock it in. We're going to have a right-wing revolution. We're going to go further to the right. Germany, Western Europe, Ireland, Spain, Italy. They're all going back to Nazism. They're all going back. They didn't learn their lesson. After the Nazis, after World War II, the FDR started this whole wave of progressivism amongst white, and the New Deal in the United States, and the what do they call it? It's right on the tip of my tongue. The Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan created liberal Western governments. And they were like, well, we're not going to just do this conquest anymore. We're going to engage in neo-colonialism. But it's going to be liberal. It's going to be progressive. It's going to be multicultural imperialism. It's not the best, not the worst, but it's just the reality. But that system breaks down because there's ongoing perpetual resistance. So they were like, well, I'd either have to get on par with humanity, give back the stuff I stole from people and stop stealing it, stop committing atrocities, or I can double down and try to take it all and wipe myself and everybody out. So if I was a good white person, I would be an anarchist, I would be a revolutionary, I'd be Antifa, I'd join Deep Green Resistance. I'd be fighting to fundamentally transform the culture, the worldview, the social theories of my people. I would go and reinvigorate Karl Marx, Eugene Debs, and all these other, Mother Jones, all these other far leftist white people. And I'm like, this is who we need to follow. I would fight against Trump, but I would also fight against the Hillary Clinton neoliberalism and neocons for my own survival. Not because I don't want us to continue to commit genocides against black and continue to make Armageddon weapons, but for the survival of my own white offspring. Trump doesn't give a damn about his offspring, but it's white people and white power. White institutions, white militaries. That is the fundamental problem. Everything else grows out from that. And yes, I'm the one black voice in the world that says blame the white man. I'm going to take the opposite side of Bill Cosby, Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith, Dr. Umar, and all these other black voices. And that say, you can't blame other people. You can't blame. I blame the white man. Because even when there's not a white person within 1,000 miles, even when you go to the Congo, when you go to black people lynching other Africans, when you go to black people in South Africa lynching Zimbabweans and lynching Nigerian immigrants in South Africa because they're coming to take our job. That's white behavior. Even when you go to Mugabe, who's a Roman Catholic, who says he's going to kick out all the African homosexuals, but allow the predatory Catholic priests to still roam Africa freely, roam around Zimbabwe spreading the light of Christ, but you're going to kick out your own brother. And don't realize that. So even when there's not a white man with 100 miles, it's still white people's fault. And I'm not saying, just because there's a difference between blame and responsibility. I also will say, it is Africans' responsibility to purge. It is Africans' responsibility to correct a problem that we did not create. And I know it's an unfair burden. It's an unjust, undue burden, but it's a burden we must carry nonetheless. It is not our fault, but it is our responsibility to fix it. It is not our fault. We didn't create the problem. It is our responsibility to fix the problem. But in order to fix the problem, we have to realize the problem. There are so many people thinking that we can liberate ourselves. There are black feminists that say black women need equality, black women need to divest from black men, black women get you a white husband, black woman get you a degree, black woman get yourself an upper 1% income, and you'll be free. And you're going to leave capitalism in place. You're going to leave global white domination in place. You're going to leave the military infrastructure in place. But you have divested. No black man can call you a bitch. No black man can get in your face because you got the money, you got the position, you got the status. And you think that's the solution? Do you breathe air, black woman, black feminist? Do you drink water? How the hell all of that gonna protect you from destruction of the atmosphere? The pollution in the atmosphere and the destruction of the ecosystem, black woman? Black feminist? I can't even speak to you black Hebrews who think some god, some ghost, some spook is going to come down on a flaming chariot and do a damn thing. There's going to be some bearded idiot in a Power Ranger suit stand upon Mount Sinai and blow a horn, and then that'll be your signal to chop off the heads of the devil. I already had a Hebrew Israelite say, when that horn is blown, they're going to cut my head off. And I'm like, well, the horn will never be blown, therefore I'm safe. If that's your solution, and not only am I safe from the wrath of your non-existent God, so is the white man. And I'd be willing to take my licks if that meant the white man would be usurped. Donald Trump is unfit to rule. But so was Bill Clinton. So was George Bush. So is Angela Merkel. These people have no right to govern the world. And every just person, I don't care what race you are, should be conspiring to usurp the dominant status quo. Take the people who are in power out of power. Render the people who are powerful powerless. That is revolution. Return the resources and the land to the people whom it was stolen from. And I don't care if it was stolen 50, 60, 70 years ago, like in the case of the Palestine, or stolen almost 2,000 years in the case of North African, Arab occupation of North Africa. We need to reset the world. There is no statute of limitation on murder, and there is no statute of limitation on colonization and land theft. That's the problem. Now, there are many other minor problems that emerge as a result of this main problem, but if you don't acknowledge the main problem, you cannot hope to implement practical solutions. You will not have a revolution. You would have reaction. You would have us trying to put out fires. We're fighting police brutality, which we should. We're fighting homelessness, which we should. We're fighting the pandemic of sexual assault, molestation, and rape of women, boys, girls, and men. There's nobody exempt, which we should. You got people like me, vegans, fighting animal rights, fighting for food sovereignty, fighting for local relocalization of agriculture, which we should. But any one of those individual issues, every black, again, let me quote Boots Riley. If everybody in the hood had a PhD, you said, no, that's Iraq, I'm sorry. If everybody in the hood had a PhD, you say that doctor flipped that burger hella good for me. This system needs exploited labor. This system needs masses of exploited workers in order to work. And they don't care if they got to enslave every citizen or just enslave prison inmates or enslave overseas foreigners and put them behind large walls in sweatshops. You need massive of enslaved workers in order to have a capitalist system, in order to have billionaires. And you're like, fine, if this is a world of exploited workers and billionaires, I'll just work to become a billionaire. Then you just made yourself an enemy of the people. You just made yourself an enemy of nature. You just avoided your own humanity. And I don't care if you never get that million. I don't trust any black person that aspires to be a billionaire. And when somebody get on there, I'm 15 years old, I'm working hard in school, and I hope to one day be a billionaire. Throw that little man, throw him away. You don't aspire to be free. You don't aspire to repair ecosystems. So I say, we got to have a fundamental. We got to know where is the tumor. And not only do you need to identify the tumor in the body, you got to identify what caused the tumor. Is it a nuclear power plant? Are there substances in the water? We got to get to the core of this issue. And the core of this issue is Western culture, Western mentality, Western psychology is now the dominant of the world. And it has to be pushed back. It has to be retracted, redacted, done away with. We have to chase them back and bind them. And if that is something you're not willing to do, then everything else you do is just for fun. All of our other forms of resistance. When you're marching in the streets, if you're not fundamentally trying to overthrow all of the systems and institutions of global white domination, if you're just trying to get better school for black kids, trying to get better jobs for black men and women, then you're just playing into their game. We need revolution. And even as you fight police brutality, you have to fight police brutality in a way that feeds into the global African revolution. So if you're going to say, hey, we need to usurp industrial agriculture, fossil fuel industries, technology and the global surveillance state, all of it's got to go. And if you can do nothing but advocate, y'all don't even advocate for liberation, let alone work for it. So what are some practical solutions? Oh, Lord. I'm going to have to make a note on this. I don't know. I act like I got a 3-day-a-week, 5-day-a-week show. And so I'm going to have to come back to this because I have some other sounds I want to share. So Wednesday, and I promise you, the moment I go live, I'm going to talk exclusively about practical solution and rational revolution. I'm going to talk about what I'm specifically working to do, currently doing, and try to expand into. And I'm going to talk about what everyone else should or could be doing to usurp this system. Most of even the liberation stuff, when they talk about most of our liberators, most of our so-called freedom fighters, everything they do, even if it helps black people, it also enhances. If what you do to help black people also legitimizes and enhances the system that we're fighting against, you hustling backwards. I'm all for African-centered education. But then we got African-centered education bragging about how many of their students go off to Harvard. Like, what? Wait. If we got African-centered education, the main purpose of African-centered education is to create an African-centered society, African-centered architecture, African-centered economics. How you Afrocentric from kindergarten to the 12th grade and then you're all, Ivy League from there? Don't make sense, do it? Not to me at least, but apparently most of these African-centered schools, many of whom I have worked with and within, this makes sense to them. And that's why I'm sitting here instead of there, because they're like, pack your bags and get out. Because it's a hustle. A lot of hustle is going on. And I want to talk about this because, I need to step my game up. I need to do more. This ain't cutting it. So Tune in Wednesday for Practical Solution, Real Revolution. I didn't talk myself off a cliff yet again, but at least we got to the core of the problem. And you know, white people go to Africa and say, we want to take all these resources. We want to extract all of the wealth and labor. And they didn't say, well, what's the obstacle to that? Well, the obstacle is, well, white people, we got to raise our kids better. We got to educate our kids. They were like, look, black people are the obstacle. We got to run through them, over them, under them, and around them, all at the same time. But we just can't say white folks. Even if you have a white spouse, even if you listen to Green Day or whatever, even if you wanted them black folks to take kindly to white folks, which I'd like to consider myself, I'm a friend of the white man. I want to take you out of power for your own good. It's not healthy for you. Y'all smoking all the opiates. Look at Trump. Trump looks miserable to me. I think he'd be much happier on a golf course every day for the rest of his life, on a sandbox somewhere, in an adult diaper. Trump looks miserable. So I consider myself a friend of the white man. If he would only heed my words. So if you're one of those white people, even if you're saying, I can't stand niggas, and if you're a Bill Cosby white person that want to submerge yourself and be white and don't want nothing to do with black, even then you should be a Pan-African revolutionary, because ruling the world is not healthy for white people. It's not healthy for Europe. In the long run. Yeah, they got a few private jets. They got a slightly longer life expectancy. But go back and listen to my show about the myth of white unity. White people suffering, you know, but black folks are like, if that's suffering, then count me in. I mean, it's a lot of work to do. But like I said, I didn't talk myself off the cliff. I'm running out of time. I got some other stuff I want to share. I want to share the remainder of that Dr. Khaled speech and some tunes, of course. You got to always have tunes on Friday. That's what I really would like to do. I like to come in here and play music almost exclusively. Because I think I have, like everyone else, I have the absolute best taste in music. Anyway, we need worldwide revolution. We need the people in power. There is not one legitimate source of white power in this world right now. They are all legitimate rulers, all their banks, their currency, their military, their occupation of lands, their imposition of their culture and their ideas, their extraction of our resources, material resources, and ideological, cultural, and philosophical. It's all illegitimate power. So the job of the revolutionary is to usurp illegitimate power and reassert legitimate power. That's simple. Ain't nothing complex. It ain't nothing hard. But like I said, understanding the problem is not the issue. It's implementing the solution. And that's what we're going to deal with when I'm back on the air Wednesday morning. Q4 Radio, AM 1680, Q4.org, TuneIn app, and iTunes Radio. We're going to go to some music. After some music, we're going to hear from our scholars. Also, Monday Q&A. That's something I'm doing to make up for some time that we've lost on the air. I'm doing Monday Q&A at 7 a.m. You can tune in Facebook Live or my YouTube. Go subscribe to my YouTube page, Diallo Kenyatta. And all I do is just speak directly to you and answer your questions. So you can don't have to just hear what I have to say. I can hear from you and speak directly to your questions, big and small. It doesn't have to be some grand question. You can ask me how best to saute tofu. You know, nobody asks me those kind of questions. You can ask me how I get my beard so fleet. You know, about my fly fashions. Nobody asks me that stuff. They want to know, because I got a question that I had to look up, talking about Chinwezu versus Kwame Nkrumah on continentalism. So I'm going to start off answering Chris's question from last week, because he stumped me, made me look dumb on my own show, but I'm going to have a good answer next time. So, Bro Diallo Show, thank you for tuning in. Also, go to that Patreon if you want to preserve, if you want to continue to have, if you don't want to lose another voice, an uncompromised, unsponsored, unfinanced voice, because I take this duty seriously. I think being in a position to speak to my community, to have a voice that is broadcast really across the globe. I don't take that responsibility or that privilege lightly. So I do make sure that my content is not just relevant, but it's on point, it's properly sussed out. And if you understand the importance of having our own independent media, our own independent voices, and truly radical, truly pan-African, truly uncompromised voices out there, please go to Patreon/Diallo Kenyatta. The link is everywhere. Go to DialloKenyatta.com and please make a contribution when and if you can. Also, please share the show. Please share the show, again, with your friends, enemies, colleagues, and adversaries. Get it out to everybody. And that helps me greatly to expand the audience and to expand my base of support and to sustain the show and to advance the show across other mediums. So please share. That don't take nothing but a moment. It ain't nothing but a thing. It ain't nothing but something to do. So go on and hook a brother up. Share the show via your network, via social media. Get the word out about the Bro Diallo Show. DialloKenyatta.com. More to come here, along with Q4 Radio. Did I say AM 1680, TuneIn app, iTunes Radio, Q4.org? I just don't want people coming to me. You didn't know. I've already broke so many radio rules. But you know, I'm a hard worker, but just not a very good one. Anyway, so Arrested Development. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the Bro Diallo Show after this musical break. Thanks for tuning in live. We're going off live, but you can continue to listen to the show via iTunes apps and all that. You heard that all. So I'll see y'all Monday. I'll see y'all on this medium Monday with Monday Q&A with Bro Diallo. Peace. Be well till then.